Welcome to my review of Returnal, Housemarque's third-person shooter roguelike video game published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. It was released for the PlayStation 5 last week. The game follows Celine, an Astra scout who lands on the planet Atropos in search for the mysterious white signal and finds herself trapped in a time loop. It's the first big release on the PlayStation 5 in what feels like forever, and it is a PS5 exclusive. Does it deliver? Do Housemarque buckle under the pressure of their first AAA game after being the indie darlings of the last few years, or do they iframe dodge through the challenge? Let's find out, shall we? Audio and visually, the game regularly impresses. Each biome is unique and varies in scale. There's a real feel of the game opening up in Biome 2 with wide open desert landscapes versus the very tight and forest-like areas of Biome 1. Biome 3 changes things further by introducing a mechanized industrial world. The next two biomes are the first two biomes, but having gone through a significant environmental change that has them feeling fresh, while the third biome in the second act is completely new. The bullet hell colours contrast brilliantly with the bleak macabre planet you have landed on, and also in turn make it very easy to see the dangers lurking around every corner. The game runs at a silky smooth 60 FPS, but at the expense of quality sometimes. The downscaling did feel severe on a few occasions, and the motion blur does kick in sometimes to keep the FPS ticking along. It's a sacrifice worth making because a smooth frame rate is needed, but the downscaling is something worth mentioning. The enemies have enough variety to keep it feeling fresh. The repetition of enemies in Biome 4 and 5 was slightly disappointing, but they have a new moveset and that keeps things fresh enough. Biome 6 has a completely new set of enemies, so there's no issue there. Sonically, the game is outright creepy, and I mean that in a good way. When it's just you and the planet, it's quite haunting. When it's you and a ton of enemies, it's adrenaline pumping. Returnal definitely combines a macabre setting, bright bullet hell effects, gorgeous graphics, and a musical composition to create a haunting gauntlet that's an absolute joy to partake in again and again.
And thereby the universe originated from the moment we stepped upon the surface of another celestial body, survived unharmed.
I didn't expect a lot from Returnal's story. Roguelikes aren't generally known for their plotlines, but like Hades, Returnal's story feels present enough to pique your interest, with a payoff at the end that makes you stand up and take notice of something that you may have been ignoring for large parts of your playthrough. Gone is Hades' comedic style, and in, however, is a much darker, much more serious tone. The story is interwoven between the many gameplay loops you will be a part of, presented in Celine's audio logs and also through her own inner monologue, in short cutscenes and most importantly in a very specific area that you'll encounter multiple times in your playthroughs. There's much more to the story than initially meets the eye, and if you wish to, you can dig a lot further for the different endings to find out what exactly is going on. Now, I don't want to spoil anything whatsoever, but the ending to Returnal is pretty mind-blowing, really brave, devastating and poignant. You are left a few pieces of the jigsaw on your numerous playthroughs, and they definitely don't all fit together at the end because it's largely left to the player's interpretation about what happens. There's a lot of symbology, mythology and mystery surrounding what actually happened to Celine and the events that led to her arriving on Atropos. One of the best things here though is how the world feels part of the story. You most definitely feel like an intruder who is somewhere they shouldn't be. This feeling is there throughout the whole campaign, and it's impressive that you always feel vulnerable no matter how powerful you end up getting in the end. This feeds into the feeling of being in danger and an imposter. It is a game that keeps on surprising you and asks you to keep focused for every second of your runs. I have to give a brief mention to Celine's house, which for some reason is on this foreign planet. As if the presence of the house isn't scary enough, the camera pulls into a first-person perspective and you begin to start getting horrible flashbacks of Hideo Kojima's PT. There's a very uneasy atmosphere in the house, and things only get weirder as you pay return visits. It's a great change of pace and it's so integral to the story, by the end it truly feels like it belongs on that planet. If it isn't obvious already, you'll die a lot in Returnal, and return to the beginning. I will delve into the criticisms of the gameplay loop in a minute, but let's focus on the myriad of positives. The combat is electric, whatever the case. Fights are frantic and seriously intense. You're forced to fight aggressively to thin enemy numbers, but you also have to stay on the move to collect the in-game currency that allows you to buy health packs and extra lives. The rainbow of bullets, shockwaves and lasers are relentless and can come from any direction. It's no over-exaggeration to say that the game had my adrenaline pumping. Not just after boss fights, but just after normal enemy encounters room to room. The pace and the cadence of the fights is brilliant. The regular skill checks, iframe dodges and elite positioning needed to advance in a way that gives you any chance of killing the boss is mesmerizing.
I am learning some amazing moves from this guy.
Yeah, you're doing great.
The whole gameplay loop enters you into a trance-like daze. The boss battles are truly memorable. The sheer sense of relief when you kill a boss is only bettered by Sekiro or Bloodborne. Just for sheer pace and intensity throughout, there is nothing quite like Returnal. There is also a brilliant Metroidvania-esque element to the gameplay where you pick up alien tech that opens up the map to you in a variety of ways. This makes subsequent reruns that much easier to swallow, as you can get to areas of the map which you couldn't get to before, which in turn boost your run. The quick recharge mechanic also allows you to feel part of the combat at all times and keeps you mentally switched on. Okay, so I want to hit upon some criticisms of the gameplay loop in Returnal. Some I feel are valid, while others are outright wrong or just told by people who couldn't beat the first boss. First and foremost, I do have to criticize the heavy bias given to RNG elements in the game by Housemarque. The game is challenging enough without relying on straight up dice rolls to make it even more difficult. I have to say, these are completely optional dice rolls that you do not have to take, and I completed my game by not ever using any of these items after Biome 2. I'd basically learnt my lesson, but they are going to alienate a lot of players early on. But let me explain. The game has your standard items, but then it also has malignant items, which are basically items that have a debuff or curse on them that you need to achieve a certain objective to remove. Now you can cleanse the debuff with ether, but ether is a very rare resource that carries over run to run. You can get it from the daily challenge, you can get 5 of it there, and you can get it in runs as well, but it's super rare and it's capped at 30. Now, for example, if you're low on health, let's say, and you find a healing item but it's malignant, what this means is you can pick it up and get the heal, but then your dash cooldown will be increased significantly. To remove this debuff, you'll need to kill 100 enemies. This isn't too much of an issue if it's only the odd item, but it just felt like the majority of the items were malignant items, and that they're all cursed. You could use ether, but it's limited, so you're pretty terrified of ever using ether in case you need it later on in your run. More on that in a minute. Now again, I need to reiterate, you do not need to pick up these items, and the game can be done easily without, but it's not a great system and one that should have been rethought. Either reducing the cleanse cost to 1 ether or not having a cap on ether would have allowed for more experimentation and build possibilities on your run through. It sucks to go through a run and leave half the items on the floor. It's not great having to decide if this is the run you will spend your precious ether on or not, because you spent the last 2 hours on this specific run, which nicely brings me on to run length and saves. There is no direct saving, well not in the way people are accustomed to. The game does have save points at certain key points in each biome. For example, on every biome you will get a key to access a boss, find your way to the boss, kill the boss, and then the next biome opens. Now after every one of those objectives, the game saves and never asks you to do it again. So once you find your way to the boss, you never have to collect the key again or find the boss, it will be marked on your map. You will need to fight your way through to him, but you can go directly to him. But that's never wise because you will need to re-level your health bar and pick up health packs. These packs require purchasing with obolites that you gain from killing enemies. So the issue here is there is no progress carried over in terms of currency to buy items or health, which means you do need to do that all over again, which takes time. However, the game for me at least did get easier the further I got into the game, and that's because the weapon progression does carry forward, as do key upgrades to the items available to you. There are 2 key things that do carry over, as well as the aforementioned ether. One is data cubes, basically these are extra items or artifacts that can be found on your runs and which are basically added to the loot pool, and the other is weapon XP. The weapons in Returnal become very, very strong by the last 2 biomes. So much so that I can confidently say that the last 2 biomes were much easier than the first 2 biomes. Now granted, this does require you to get a bit of luck on which weapons you find, but regardless, eventually you will end up with a very strong pool of weapons that will significantly help you on your runs. I however have to say that the game is not as difficult as a lot of people are making out. It is a challenge for sure, but once you understand the enemy attacks in each biome, how to stagger them and who to focus on and when, it all becomes very automated as your muscle memory kicks in. Returnal definitely combines graphics, gameplay, and a musical composition that is an absolute joy to partake in. Yes, there are the odd game design choices that could have been better, and the sheer effort required for every run made it feel like more hard work than it should have been, but the overall product is a joy to conquer. Returnal is a much bigger game than you think it is. For all the noise surrounding the price of PlayStation games, House Marquee has produced its largest, most ambitious project to date. This isn't a small-scale title with a £70 cost. The fanboy in me wanted to give Returnal a light 9, but I am a harsh reviewer and the critic in me felt a strong 8 was the right landing spot for Returnal. It doesn't have any glaring weaknesses and executes brilliantly throughout. A little more thought about malignant items and the length of each playthrough would have made it more fun than the stressful game it can be or the hard work it feels like. Saying that though, I haven't felt this good about beating a game since Sekiro, and that should tell you more than any score I give the game ever could. Thanks for watching, I'm Lost in the World. Let me know if you like the look of the game, if you enjoyed the game, what you thought of the difficulty. Leaving a like helps me out a ton, so please do, otherwise you will get 100% malignant items on your runs. Take care, peace and stay safe.